This is the last of the series on cancer, and I have one that I wanted to do, actually maybe even two that we'll do on heart, some new things that we're discovering, as far as prevention and also for remedies. There are other things that we could talk about as far as cancer is concerned. pH is a good one. Oxidation, not to be confused with the free radical antioxidants, but we try to put everything that we could into each of these 5 sections. Well, the one thing that I hope that everybody will get out of it is that if you know anyone that has cancer or is diagnosed with cancer, or your family history of cancer, you've got to understand that it is definitely something that you need to consider is changing lifestyles. Now, I talk to other churches other than Adventist churches, okay? And we talk to people that are meat eaters and everything, and you can kind of imagine the culture shock when we start talking about the 8 divine principles of health, with them. I mean, they are really accepting it, folks. And I think that it's God's leading that I'm doing this, to place them, there so I can just kind of, let them know that it's God that's doing this and lead them maybe into the third angel's message. And I wish that you would pray for me while I do these. There are literal hundreds of churches that they want us to do it in, and I'm not exactly sure how long I can do it or how many I'll be able to do, but I want to spread God's word through the health message if possible. Before we get started in this program, I know we're still waiting for some to come in. Let's have a word of prayer, and then if any of you have any questions that you want to start off with on any of the prior meetings, we'll be glad to entertain them. Let's bow our heads. Loving Father in heaven, as we look at possibly a different way of approaching diseases, through your message, through your guidance. And we pray, Father, that as we open this program up, the final program on cancer, that you will help us to understand your medicine and what you have for us. And then take this and share it with others. Because as time goes on, we know that the world is going to get sicker, and we have a message that we need to proclaim. For we ask it in Christ's precious name. Amen. The program today, the last 2 sections on treatment profiles, that we call it, our treatment therapies, is inflammation and toxicity. And really the reason why that I chose to save them for last is because the inflammation may not be so controversial, but the detoxing of our system is very controversial in medicine today. If you go on the internet and you look at detox programs that they have, you're going to find that, WebMD and Mayo Clinic and all the others are talking about there is nothing to a bunch of garbage in trying to detox your system, but I beg to differ with them. I'm going to share this story while I'm waiting for others to come in. When I was in training, the first patient that I had, maybe I told this story before, but the first patient that I had really that I was kind of in charge of was a 36-year-old lady in her 2nd trimester of pregnancy with very severe leukemia. And the doctors in those days, which was a long time ago, would not treat her because they knew that if they did, it would abort the fetus, and they were not allowed to do that in those days. And she basically came to us and said to the head of the department, and I overheard her saying, said, "I really don't want to die." And he said, "Well, why do you think you have to die?" And she said, "Well, that's what they told me." who told you? And they spouted off, she spouted off the name of the physician, another doctor that I actually knew, an oncologist. And I came in, I just butted in. And I kind of went into it a little bit saying, don't pre-program your brain to say you're going to die. This is not good. This is not God's way. And that's the reason why Dr. Statham said, you take care of her. Well, the first thing that we did was did the blood work and everything else. And people, I will tell you that whenever you look at the blood work of a patient with leukemia, you know it's leukemia. There is no question about it. Her blood looked like pus when it centrifuged out. And so the thing that I was looking at more than anything else was the last topic of the day, and that is the toxicities. I will let you know that we did, and I'm going to explain the program, and I have some handouts for those that don't have an internet on how to detox your colon and your liver. And I will tell you that when we did this, the matter that came out of her weighed over 26 pounds. And it was almost like immediate, she felt better. Well, yes, I would think so. But the interesting part about this is that when we did her blood work about a week later, it began to clear up and her white cells began to go normal. And put her on a very strict vegan diet. And we had to teach her what a vegan diet was. She was from no country girl there in Manatee County, and they ate meat at every meal. And it was really culture shock for her. But she wanted to live, and she wanted that baby born. And I will tell you that the materials that we gave her, she accepted it, she followed it through to the nth degree. She went full term, had her baby, and she lived 27 years after that with leukemia. I can't say that we ever cured the leukemia. But this is powerful stuff that God has given us, folks. And when you look at a natural way of treating a disease, you've got to look at the number one, I would say the number one thing that you need to do is trusting God. You've got to turn it over to Him. And then be willing to follow whatever His lead is. Okay, we'll get started. The definition of inflammation. Inflammation is a basic way in which the body reacts to infection, irritation, or other injury. The key feature being redness, warmth, swelling, and pain. Inflammation is now recognized as a type of nonspecific immune response. What does that mean? Well, you cut your finger, and then it begins to, when it starts to heal up, it gets red, it gets hot, and sometimes it gets material in there, and this is the body's defensive mechanisms that are doing this. Well, the inflammation inside of you is the same, but you just can't see it. Let me explain that. We've talked about this, but you know that doctors will check your cholesterol, right? And they said, "Whoa, wow, your cholesterol is high." Or let's say that your LDL levels are high. This actually may be nothing more than a nonspecific immune response. And the cholesterol issues themselves, as they used to say, was the number one reason for most cardiovascular diseases. They're not saying that anymore. There are other markers that we have to look at as far as inflammation. I don't want to get ahead of myself because I'm going to talk about something they call silent inflammation in just a minute. But inflammation, many cancers arise from sites of infection, chronic irritation, and inflammation. It is now becoming clear that the tumor microenvironment, which is largely orchestrated by inflammatory cells, is an indispensable participant in the neoplastic process, fostering proliferation, survival, and migration. Now, all that simply means is that the inflammation can be the keys to fostering the proliferation of cell growth, meaning having your tumor grow faster, survival, which gives it Also, we talked about this, about angiogenesis, remember, last week, where the blood vessels feed the tumor. Inflammation actually causes this, or is one of the major reasons for this. And then the migration. What is migration in the term of cancer? Metastasis. Okay? So the concept of inflammation is very important, and we need to really pay attention to this. It says inflammatory diseases such as colitis, pancreatitis, hepatitis have been linked to greater risk of cancer of the colon, pancreas, and liver. Now, you know, how it orchestrates this, or why, let's put it that way, let's back up. Why does inflammation, where does it come from? You know, why is it there? I'm going to ask you the question, why do you think you have inflammation inside of your bodies?
The body's trying to heal itself.
Okay, of what? Some kind of disease or something? Excuse me.
It could be an infection.
Infection, okay. What else?
Some kind of irritation.
Okay.
We could be eating the wrong kind of food.
Oh, now you're getting closer to it.
Yeah, injecting non-specific into what you're eating.
Yeah. Foods that you're eating can cause this. Now, I'm going to use my son-in-law, and I hope he will forgive me for using him. I love him dearly. For years, he was a steel worker. He lived on coffee, and he'd run down to 7-Eleven and get a hot dog. Donuts, coffee, hot dogs. What was he doing to his colon? What was he doing to his digestive system? Well, he was in Canada when we discovered that he had stage 4 cancer. It's all over his body. Inoperable, untreatable, except for one thing, and that's God's medicine. I'm going to tell you that he is doing well, but he is on a very strict vegan diet. Right, Julie? He won't eat a bit of meat. He won't drink an ounce of coffee. He drinks nothing but herbal teas. He drinks red clover and chaparral tea for his pH. He eats lots of fiber and everything else, and the tumors are shrinking all throughout his body. But I'm a total believer in all of this. But the inflammation that was caused by his diet created the colorectal cancer that he has, that metastasized, by the way, through the rest of his body. Silent inflammation. Now, we just talked about inflammation being, it hurts, it's red, it's hot, and you know it's there, right? If you got colitis or irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's or any of these things, or an ulcerated stomach, you feel it, right? But what about this silent stuff? A lot of us do not realize that because of our habits that we had, even at our younger age, created a situation in our systems to create this inflammation processes. And there are markers, folks, that you can test. Doctors don't do this often. There's C-reactive protein. They look at homocysteines. Cholesterol issues is probably one of them as well. We look at cortisol. We look at these different types of hormones and what is, and even insulin, high levels of insulin can be indicative of an inflammation process going on in the system. Okay, this is what this came from a doctor that we're going to hear from in just a minute. Is an insidious inflammation that remains below the threshold of perceived pain while wreaking havoc in one's body for years. The latest research has linked silent inflammation to the causes of chronic diseases, including heart disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune diseases, and Alzheimer's. Silent inflammation involves the overproduction of inflammatory producing icosanoids, hormones like the cortisol I was just mentioning, and insulin is also considered that. There are clinical tests that can determine one's level of silent inflammation. Appropriate dietary changes, quality supplements, and lifestyle modification can reduce silent inflammation and one's risk of chronic disease.
Inflammation is the cornerstone of the body's healing response, and we all know it on the surface of the body. It's local heat, redness, swelling, and pain. That's the way the body gets more nourishment and more immune activity to an area that's injured or under attack. But inflammation is so powerful that it's very important that it stays where it's supposed to stay and end when it's supposed to end. If inflammation persists, if it serves no purpose, it becomes productive of disease. It destroys tissue, it causes damage. And so in the body, inflammation is very tightly regulated. There are forces that increase inflammation and forces that decrease inflammation. And these have to be in balance so that inflammation is ready when it's needed and can be called off when it's not needed. There is I think, growing awareness that many chronic degenerative diseases, and certainly I think all of the diseases of aging, are rooted in inappropriate inflammation. I said that Alzheimer's disease begins as an inflammatory process in the brain. Coronary heart disease, the root there seems to be inflammation in the lining of arteries, and that seems to be a deeper root than deposition of cholesterol. In fact, it may even be that the cholesterol deposits are flawed healing attempts of the body trying to patch defects caused by inflammation. So the question is, what causes the inflammation? Why is that there? I think even the most interesting connection is with cancer, because when I was studying medicine, and up until relatively recently, all of these diseases were seen as very separate. There would be nothing in common between coronary heart disease and cancer. But in fact, the same hormones that upregulate inflammation also stimulate cells to divide more frequently. So anything that pushes the body in the direction of increased inflammation is also pushing the body in the direction of increased possibility of malignant transformation. And I think the exciting possibility here is that if all these diseases have a common root, then there's a common strategy for dealing with them. Inflammation is influenced by genetics, it's influenced strongly by nutritional factors, and that's what I'll talk to you about tomorrow. It's influenced by toxins that we're exposed to in the environment. It's influenced by stress and emotional states. So a lot of that is under your control. And I think one of the key points of healthy aging and achieving compression of morbidity is adopting and constructing an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. That is, in all the areas that you have control over, doing things that help contain inappropriate inflammation. I think you could make a case that most people in our part of the world go through life in a pro-inflammatory state. And that, allergy might be one manifestation of that in early life. Autoimmune diseases may be. But I think the more interesting and important possibility is that long-term, that inappropriate, low-level chronic inflammation, and not where you're aware of it, this is going on internally, is the root cause of these big categories of diseases of aging.
Dr. Weil, strange it is, it may seem to you know him, by the way. Have any of you heard him before? He's a Harvard-trained physician, MD. He also, though, took ethnobotany. Kind of strange, that was what his undergraduate work was. I took ethnobotany as well. And I think that's what probably got him on this thought once he got into medicine. He's really considered the father of integrative medicine now in this country. There are doctors on the natural side that don't like him, and there are doctors on the allopathic side that don't like him because he's riding the fence. But I think he does, his messages are quite clear. I hope you heard what he said, that the underlying chronic causes of these diseases, inflammation, is something that we may not even know that's going on. So if you adopt an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, And that is inclusive of what we have already discussed in our meetings. What do you think that an anti-inflammatory lifestyle would be? Let me ask you that question.
Well, just one thing, kick out the meat.
All right? Take the meat out of your diet, absolutely. No dairy, okay? Sugar, okay? So everybody's into the diet area. Anything? Okay, and gluten, if you're sensitive. Okay, Harry, you said exercise? Absolutely. What else do you think you might do to adopt an anti-inflammatory lifestyle? Lots of water. Sleep. What kind of sleep? When do you sleep? If you can, get into bed. Those hours before midnight. Or when those hours is when your body repairs itself. That's when you really do need it. Yes?
And decrease the stress level.
Stress, absolutely. In fact, stress is one of the major causes of this thing. And you can adopt, an anti-stress. Check.
The 8 natural doctors.
Right. Exactly.
That's what we're talking about.
Right, exactly.
Wake up and see God.
Yes.
No, I was not supposed to say about the 8 doctors.
Right.
Probably that.
Pharmaceuticals may be one of the number one causes of inflammation in our bodies. And I'm going to explain a little bit of that when we get through today in the liver. Yes, Chester.
In this day, we have a lot of toxic stuff coming in
Right.
from our foods, from our environment.
Right.
As much as we can minimize it.
Okay, you just did the seminar. We can go home now. Because that's absolutely correct. All right, well, let's look at this. We've already talked about the anti-inflammatory diet. I think that you could kind of just follow along with it and understand it totally. Like, for instance, you've already mentioned, reduce what? Refined foods, sugar, white flour, white rice, white breads, snack foods. And you're right on the gluten, by the way, because it has now been shown to really cause inflammatory conditions, especially folks in the small intestine. And it's one of the leading causes now of leaky gut syndrome. Avoid any food made with high fructose corn syrup. Eat more whole grains. Now, you must understand that I got this. I went ahead and followed along with what Dr. Wild was saying. You know, I wanted to kind of like, he said he was going to talk about this. This is basically what he presented in his other presentations. We already know this. Eat more beans, winter squash, and sweet potatoes. These are for your carbohydrates now. Looking at the fat content, what kind of fats should you not eat? Animal fats, okay? Hydrogenated. What else? Trans fats, those that are engineered. And trans fats are just about in every fried potato chip and fried food, fast food that's out there. Right. Yeah. Right. Okay, so you've got it. What kind of should you eat then? We've got them in front of us. Tell me some oils that you can eat or that you should eat. Olive oil, okay. Limit olive oil though, folks, and be careful because not all olive oil is created equal. They are putting all kinds of other oils in them nowadays.
Nuts, yeah.
Right, right.
Nuts and seeds.
What, yeah, grapeseed is good. Grapeseed oil is good, yeah. The, down at the bottom one there on the fats, it's talking about eating the flax seeds, hemp, and chia seeds for the omega-3. I am not going to tell you about it today, maybe sometime in the future because it has to do with the heart anyway, but there's another product that they've discovered. I think it's from South America that the chia, flaxseed, and the hemp seed, all these oils are considered, they're ALA, alpha-linoleic acid. And when you eat them, they have to be broken down by an enzyme in our body. into the necessary omega-3s that our body uses, EPA and DHA, okay? Now, what we've discovered is there is a plant out there. Now, the science on it so far tells us that it has that enzyme in the plant itself. I think that's marvelous, because as we get older, that enzyme kind of decreases. Now, if you follow along with a vegetarian diet, though, the vegetarian diet itself will help to increase that particular enzyme that breaks these ALAs down into these necessary omega oils that we need for our brain and our heart. So it's kind of like a win-win situation when you're going a vegan or a vegetarian diet. Mostly vegan would be best. Protein. His decrease, and this is what he's saying, and we've already talked about, decrease your consumption of animal proteins. I'm saying that if you really want to live a free of inflammation in your system, stay away from it all. Eat more vegetable protein like nuts, seeds, grains, and legumes. And the fiber. Now, we've talked about fiber before. The average American woman gets about 12 grams of fiber a day. And they need 30. The average man will get somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 if he eats even a lot of vegetables. And they need about 40 to 50 grams a day. Fiber is very important for reducing inflammation in your body. Now, what it does, it also pulls the toxins out of the system, but it strengthens the digestive system when you're eating fibrous foods. You can only find fiber in plant protein, plant foods, right? Okay. The anti-inflammatory diet continues with the phytonutrients, and we've talked about this. These natural antioxidants and anti-inflammatory that we find in the plants come in the nice colors, the reds, the greens, the yellows, and the oranges. That's where you get your protection. So don't peel your apple, eat the peeling. Choose organic produce or grow your own. Now, I'll put this one in. The microgreens that we've talked about, I mentioned this to you on several occasions, but I will tell you that they continue with their studies at Johns Hopkins on this. The microgreens they are finding, the cancer fighters that are in the cruciferous microgreens, are anywhere from 10 to 100 times the amount that you find in a mature product that you buy at Publix. It's very important. Food can definitely be your medicine, and medicine can be your food. Drinking herbal teas instead of coffee, eliminating all of these, of course, that we know already we need to eliminate. Recommended vitamins for the anti-inflammatory is your vitamin C, E, your mineral selenium, vitamin A, D, and K. And then we've already talked about drinking the water that we need, okay? These are the supplements that we and a number of other institutions have studied as some of the best anti-inflammatory supplements out there. Turmeric, we know about. Ginger, bromelain, you find in pineapple. Boswellia, the omega-3 acids we've already talked about. Wobenzyme is a group of proteolytic enzymes, and you can find those in the health food store. And an herb that is grown in India, and the peractin is really coming on real strong. It was discovered. It's been in Ayurvedic medicine, which is traditional Indian medicine, for hundreds, even thousands of years, but we're just discovering this and how important this one is, as an anti-inflammatory. They say that this may be the best pain product on the market today, is this one. And I've been studying it to find out, all of the different ramifications and what are the components that work in this particular herb. And then we've talked about the genistein and ipriflavone that we get from soy. Those are some of the best anti-inflammatory supplements in the world. And you can, if you have an inflammation situation, and it can be a painful inflammation like colitis or like Crohn's or some other type that you have, even a pain from a cut on your finger, these products help. So they are the aspirin and the Tylenol of the future, okay? Toxins. Now, this is where we kind of stray away from mainstream medicine. Mainstream medicine agrees with the inflammatory situation, okay? They really do. They don't agree with what I'm going to tell you now. So this is going to be from a naturopathic concept altogether. All right. A toxin is defined as any compound that has a detrimental effect on cell function or structure. Toxins can damage the body in an insidious and cumulative way. Once the internal detoxification system becomes overloaded, toxic metabolites begin to accumulate. It is this accumulation of these toxins over a period of time that wreak havoc on our bodies. You were talking about this, Chester, about the industrial chemicals. We have another slide on that too. But there are so many of them that they are introducing every year and they have no idea the effect that it has on our bodies. But I think that's one of the reasons why we're having such a huge rise in certain types of cancers. For instance, you remember what it's not on this particular slide on this presentation, but you remember what I told you that they found in the umbilical cord of the newborn? Do you remember that, any of you? They found these industrial chemicals, and they don't understand how it got there. There was over 100 different types of carcinogenic industrial chemicals found in these infants. How did it get there? The mothers, were they eating them? Was it in the environment? Were they drinking them? The answer is all the above. It's in our water. It's in our food. It's in the air. So how do we avoid it? Heavy metals would be anything like your aluminum, your mercury, lead, arsenic, nickel, cadmium, all of those are heavies. How can you reduce what you breathe? Choose where you live? Do you think that we have as many pollutants here as they do, say, downtown Orlando? I'm going to tell you something, folks. They just discovered bisphenol, which is a plastic, a hydrocarbon in plastic that is very carcinogenic. They found it right on top of the Himalayas. Himalayas.
Really? They're carried by the air.
Yeah. How did it get there? Well, that's the thing that we need to consider here. Is there a way, though, that you can prevent being exposed to this? And the answer is probably no. However, living in the country is the best way to deal with this right now. Huh?
Not on the main road.
Right. True. But what you can do is, again, as far as, and we're going to talk about how to rid your body of these toxins, okay? So I just want you to keep that in mind on the air that you breathe. What about in the food that you eat? Commercially grown broccoli, okay, that you get at Publix. Do any of you buy broccoli at Publix? Okay. Have you eaten it? Yeah. Do you know what you're getting? No. No, you don't. Which we know in the spirit of prophecy, we're told that in the last days we're going to start growing our own food. Do you know we're there now? We are. Because it's so bad that you even have a mainstream Harvard-trained physician telling you these things now. So what are we going to do? we're going to start helping each other. Okay? I think that, we need to start growing a lot of our own foods, and I think there are a number of people around that grow things, that grow them naturally. They do not have all of the insecticides and pesticides and synthetic chemicals that they put on these things. And I am really thankful that the Lord brought me to the company I'm working for now, because they feel the same way. And they're going to start putting in stores like the fresh markets and things like that. They're going to introduce those because of the fact that they think that we do need to give good food to humankind. And it's a good and honorable concept. I just hope they can carry it out. Toxins, including industrial chemicals and their polluted byproducts, the pesticides, additives to our food, heavy metals, all the drugs and everything that we take, the environmental hormones, all the secondary smoke, the exhaust from cars and everything else, we are just inundated with it. And here's the slide. More than 2 million synthetic substances have been identified, and 25,000 new toxins are added each year to our environment.
That'll make you sick.
It will make you sick.
Just knowing it.
Yeah.
It'll make you sick.
About 30,000 are produced on a commercial scale. Unfortunately, only a minuscule percentage have ever been tested as toxins. I'm going to get on my soapbox real quick again about soybeans. Roundup Ready soybeans. How many of you remember me talking about this? Okay. Now you have, in the United States, 98% of all soybeans are GMO. 98%. Now, what that means is simply this, that they have, for those that do not know, I'm going to tell you again. These soybeans have been genetically modified with a microorganism. It's not normal, not natural, and they've spliced this gene into this particular soybean only so that that soybean will be resistant to Roundup. Do you know what Roundup is? It kills weeds, right? Well, do you know it kills you too? And it's not only the Roundup active ingredient, it's also the surfactants that they have in Roundup that systemically gets into the plant and into the seed that is carcinogenic. Now, there's a task force studying this in our area of the world that's not from the mainstream Monsanto groups, trust me. They're studying, what the effects of this may be on the human body, finally. But with 98% of all soybeans out there, and you know what? Soybeans are a good source of protein. They're very good for you, except that they said we can't have soybeans because it interferes with your hormones. No, it didn't before. Why is it doing it now? Is that possibly one of the side effects of this genetically modification? And these cancers that they're discovering, strange cancers of the pancreas and cancers of the adrenal glands and kidneys in these areas where they use a lot of this stuff. And I've seen them go in with their planes and their tractors and just spray these fields, and they're beautiful. They have all this soybean and not one weed in the field at all. But it's just nothing but poison. They're feeding America, folks. You got to be really careful of this, and I think that grassroots level is where this has to start. That we've got to voice our opinion about this. All right.
We have these milks that have soybeans in them, and they claim to be NMGO.
Right. Non-GMO.
Yeah, not GMO.
Yeah.
They have to come from someplace.
Well, it comes from about 2% of the soybeans that's out there in this country, but there are other countries that will not allow. You can go to China and you won't find one GMO soybean in the entire country. You can go.
If we got soy tofu that was imported from China, it's
It's probably non-GMO, and they've probably specified on the label.
Now, Canada, what's Canada's position?
Well, Canada's another Monsanto-controlled country, like New Zealand and Australia. They're all under the control of Monsanto farmers. And I'm not going to get on my soapbox with that one today, but I got some war stories that I could tell you that'll scare you to death, how they treat the farmers that are trying to grow heirloom-type seeds. All right. But, you know, the thing is that we are going... Yes, ma'am.
If you get the soybeans that are organic, is those okay?
Not necessarily, because they can grow a GMO soybean organically and say it's organic. It has to say non-GMO on it. If you find that what we do as far as our business is concerned, I'll look for, and this is a key word, heirloom seeds. Heirloom seeds are seeds that you can grow. Heirloom is like H-E-I-R, heirloom. Seeds that you can plant, it grows up, you can harvest the seeds, plant them again, and like we used to do as farmers. Okay? And those are the types that you need to look for if you're going to grow your own garden. And also demand when you go to the store that you get non-GMO foods. Just everybody needs to do this. Come on. You don't have to be silent about this. You can tell your produce manager at Publix or Winn-Dixie, you do not want to get GMO foods. Get us non-GMO. And if enough of us would say that, then it was, you know, we'll stop feeding us this garbage. By the way, I don't get any Christmas cards from Monsanto.
If you get good breed, you might consume less food. You know, we overeat.
Sure.
It's the American way.
Well, it would be good to, if we would, you know, grow our own if we possibly can, or you know, if you find a farmer that does grow organic, is, you know, work with him, you know, or buy his product, okay? Long-term exposure to toxins can result in metabolic and genetic alterations that can affect cell growth, behavior, and immune response. Your children's children can be affected by this, and maybe not you, and maybe not your children. The World Health Organization has implicated environmental toxic chemicals in over 75% of all cancer cases. Actually, it's 80. But that was, I just quoted them. But now it's 80. 80% of all cancer, do you hear me? All cancers, 80% of it is from environmental toxins. So is this an important talk? Is this something that we need to learn how to handle? Okay. Now, Harry, just for you. Heavy metal toxins. It's lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic, nickel, and aluminum are included in this category. These metals tend to accumulate in the brain, kidneys, and immune system. I'll tell you right now that it's been refuted and documented and back and forth over about the aluminum and its effect on Alzheimer's. I am here to tell you there is a direct correlation, and eventually it'll all come out. Cookware. If you go like Julie and I did to Bed Bath & Beyond or whatever it was, to look at cookware, even the lined cookware, the base of it was aluminum. And the question is, well, does aluminum, can you get the aluminum if it's on the outside? And the answer is, yes, you can. And you shouldn't be eating in these things. Anything that has aluminum, any aluminum cans or anything like that, can leach out the aluminum into your system. Look, you don't want to, yes?
Also, make sure you read your labels. Cake mixes, brownie mixes, some of the baking powder, all have aluminum in them.
Right. Antiperspirant, there you go. Aluminum. You put it right into one of the soft tissue of your body. It gets right into your cells. Go ahead, keep doing it. Toothpaste too, yes, exactly. Read the labels. Start reading the labels and start demanding that they eliminate this stuff, okay?
Went to a class and they would concentrate on this one subject. Read the ingredients.
Yeah.
Understand what they really mean.
Right.
Because some words are this long.
Well, if they're this long, they're probably no good.
Well, that's right, exactly.
If somebody can explain it to you, maybe. All right. Up to 25% of the U.S. population suffer from heavy metal poisoning, especially from lead, mercury, and aluminum, and it can manifest itself in so many different ways. It may be very subtle. Over 600,000 tons of lead is released into the atmosphere from industrial, and by the way, that may be a low figure now. I think that was about 3 years ago. From industrial processes and leaded gas. The toxins could then either be inhaled or ingested after being deposited on food, crops, fresh water, and soil. Heavy metal toxicity has been linked to several diseases, including Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, severe neurological disorders, and cancer. Okay. Eliminating toxins. Finally, we get there, right? All right. Let me explain something to you about this. The real reason that I got involved in this, probably about the toxicities again, is the information that we're being fed now by the scientists from Japan. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Are any of you familiar with Fukushima? Yeah. Okay. What do you know about that? It what? Oh, nuclear power plant. What happened to it? Harry said it polluted the world with radiation.
You've got 8 other similar ones, which just never hit the typical newspapers. Kind of like atomic mishap.
We have physicists that we know and scientists that study this. I want to let you know something that's really disturbing to me, and that is that the federal government removed 90% of all test location of atmospheric radiation. Removed them, closed them down. At the same time, they just upped the level of safe limits of radiation. So, I mean, they know it's coming. They don't want you to know about it. And the poor people out from Alaska all the way down to South America and Ecuador in particular, and the current and what has transpired and what's transpiring right now is that the animal life is dying in the Pacific Ocean. They're catching salmon that have bleeding gills and eyes, and they are so loaded with radiation that they have to throw them away. And I know that I've mentioned this to you before, but the fishermen that go out and get sardines in the Pacific Northwest came back this time, the entire fleet, with nothing. There are no sardines. The sea lions, the otters, and what have you are dying all up and down the coast. Do you read about this, folks? Have any of you read about this? Why isn't it in the newspaper? We're killing the world, and God says that He's going to destroy those that destroy the earth, folks. Okay? And this is happening right now. The amount of thyroid cancer in children in Japan is off the scale. And yet the Japanese government publishes nothing about this. The core of some of these, the scientists that went over there, the core of some of these nuclear garbage waste is leaking out to literal hundreds and hundreds of tons every hour into the Pacific Ocean from this. And nothing is being done to stop it.
And by the way, they still are having a lot of earthquakes that are not reporting to us over here that are bigger than that.
Yeah, and number 2 reactor, they cannot even find the nuclear cores. They don't know where they are. Do you know where they are? They went straight down into the earth. They melted right through that. I think it's something like 30 feet of cement. They went straight through that. They're no longer there. And they just shrug their shoulders and walk away. Okay. So what I started doing, and the company came to me and said, is there anything that we can do for these? Well, strontium, I think it's 140 lead, and some of these others that are high, have high levels of radioactivity. We've discovered that things like activated charcoal, zeolites, montmorillonite, which is a clay, When you take it internally, it absorbs this out of the body. So I'm working on that right now with some other scientists to try to develop something that humans could, out there, could at least take. We're going to try to get into Japan at least. But it destroys the endocrine system. So we are looking at things to help with the endocrine system as well, to help protect these children and what have you as soon as we can. Because it's going to be the infant and the very elderly that's going to be affected first. Those are your canary in the mine shaft. You know what that means, right? Okay. A toxic load often contributes to carcinogenesis, and the fight against cancer only increases with this load. Waste produced by your immune system, cancer drugs, radiation, and the cancer itself will increase this toxic load. Whatever these toxins may be, they put a strain on your system just when you need your strength the most. There isn't much formal research here, but the traditional and theoretical foundation behind detox therapy makes sense. Detoxification is a cornerstone of most traditional cancer protocols, and for good reason. Defining detoxification, I'll just simply state this real quick. That is when you are using something. It can be a different, it can be foods, it can be taking, say, something that will work to absorb the toxin out of the body, or whatever the discipline may be that you're trying. It's something that we need to do to detoxify our systems. So what I want to talk about today is a simple process. This is not Einstein stuff, but this is stuff that you can do on a daily basis, or at least a monthly basis, to help detoxify your system if you're exposed to these things, okay? We're going to look at the digestive system first. Primarily, when the body is doing its job and is not overburdened with toxins, the blood carries toxins to the liver, which uses enzymes to detoxify these harmful substances. In fact, pharmaceuticals, just so you know, we study this very carefully. We look at the drug that we're giving you, and this is what I did. We're looking at the drug we're giving you, and we'll see when it passes, and there are two phases in the liver, two passes. And when it passes through the liver, it converts it into a metabolite that is actually what causes the effect on the system. It's not the drug itself that's working. Most of the time, it is the metabolite that is produced by the liver that does this, but the liver is just trying to get rid of it. And instead of it, we just keep giving it to our systems, and the liver after a while says, I've had enough. And it gives up. And so that's the reason why on many drugs, pharmaceutical drugs that you see today, one of the side effects is liver toxicity. Okay? That's the reason why. I think that there are a few, like Dr. Wild and what have you, are beginning to understand that there's something you've got to do to protect that liver. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Our body does not, however, always know how to handle the new toxins in our lives. It cannot understand how to excrete them, and they may then accumulate in harmful quantities or be converted into some kind of odd, unknown substance that can interfere with normal body function and can cause many types of chronic diseases. This is a statement that I will tell you they gave me when I was in the first year of school, med school. Diseases begins in the colon. Well, that may not necessarily be totally true, but a lot of it is true, okay? A sluggish colon can retain 5 to 20 pounds of poisonous matter, and up to 65 pounds have actually been reported in the colon. A clean colon is essential in our detox pipeline. The liver is the main detoxifying organ in the body, and it works by filtering out and or neutralizing dangerous drug residues and poisons from the blood, and then passing them out of the body through the colon via the bile duct. But if the colon is plugged or sluggish, everything backs up. The net result is sickness and disease. In fact, you can't even begin to cleanse and repair other systems of the body until you have cleaned out the colon. So that toxic material, you have to clean it out of the pathway first. I know this may not be the most ideal subject to talk about after lunch. However, right, got it, okay. And if I'm making anybody sick, you can leave, that's all right. This is colon detox 101, okay? In fact, everybody in this room, young and old, need to pay real close attention to this. This is something that you should do, probably on a weekly basis and not a daily basis. Does all disease start in the colon? No. But a large percentage of diseases do start in the colon. So the old docs were right when they was teaching us this, because we've now found science to back all this up. And you can follow the pipeline all the way back up to some kind of chronic condition like high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol issues, cancer, and I go down the list. Start right there. Okay. Drinking water is vital. How many times have I got to say this? How much water should you drink a day? How many of you really drink 8 glasses of water a day? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hey, that's pretty good. Actually, if you do it right, exactly. Take your body weight, divide it into it, and you get your ounces you should be taking. Yeah, that's exactly right. We just say 8 by 8, 8 glasses of 8 ounces of water a day. All right.
You're almost there.
Did you hear what Chester said? If you're sick of it, you're almost there.
If you drink more water and you should have it.
If you what?
She says, what happens if you drink too much water?
You go to the bathroom a lot.
Besides that, no, I say that.
Can you drink so much water that it becomes toxic? Is that what you're asking? No?
In very rare cases.
If you vomit it back up, yeah, it's considered dangerous, right? That's about it, because you're not gonna hurt your system by drinking too much water. But you will throw it up if you drink too much water. If you don't get any salt in your diet or whatever like that, you can. But if you're a normal diet, normal person, it's very difficult. Yes, sir.
There was a case on a radio station where somebody drank specifically distilled water, a gallon of it in one sitting, and because it didn't have the natural
Minerals?
that occurred, yeah, he killed him instantly because they said it was because of the brain couldn't communicate with the body anymore because of the
Pull the minerals out of the body using distilled water. I never recommend distilled water for anybody to drink. You don't drink distilled water.
I think it was actually like a drinking contest or something. Right.
Oh, yeah? Distilled water?
It didn't really matter. It was like 3 gallons of water in an hour. Which is
Oh, that's ridiculous. Okay.
You drink too much, too quickly, you can shift your sodium potassium balance.
Talking about your pH balance?
Sodium potassium.
Yeah.
Sodium loss.
Right.
I would recommend 3 glasses of water upon rising. And I said, I can do that, because I don't drink water. I was never didn't
Right.
drink a lot. I'm drinking 3
Right.
glasses of water before breakfast. And then I don't have to get up at 3 and 4 and 5 o'clock to take a urine.
No.
Not waiting.
Right. If somebody drinks that much water, they usually throw it up, though. They really do. I mean, because I know of kids in college used to play that game. Eat a healthy plant-based diet. We already talked about that many times. Exercise and stimulates your body systems. Practicing stress management. Getting adequate amounts of fiber daily. How much?
30 grams.
For women? How much for men? Okay. Fasting can be very effective. Taking the proper supplements and herbs.
What liquid do you use in fasting?
What liquid do you use? You can use water. You can do a water fast. You can,
Do a little more than just water. So I didn't remember what it was.
in a juice fast you're talking about?
Yeah.
Green juice.
Yeah, well, there's specific juice fasts that are out there.
Well, I think you probably take a little green vegetables and grind that up and have that with water.
Well, the fasting that they're talking about is pretty much not eating or drinking anything.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're not going to do that for very long.
Any kind of fasting.
If you're fasting, if you're on a no food type situation, you can stay on that for a number of days. I mean, they've gone 30 days without eating,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not suggesting that. What I'm saying is that if for cleansing the colon, if you are doing that, then water and what have you like that, you can start. Cancer patients. I usually tell an individual that if you go on a water fast, for at least 3 days, that it kind of reboots the system and it stops the progress. You're not feeding the cancer. You're hydrating your system again. You're getting a blank slate to start working with, and then you start adding in the other things that you need to do at that time. Using enemas and colonic irrigation helps flush toxins out of the colon. How many of you know about the colonics? Quite a few of you. For those that don't, we'll just talk about it. They call it colon hydrotherapy. It is also called colonic irrigation. It's considered by many as a safe and effective method to cleanse the large intestine of accumulated waste and toxins. Filtered water is introduced into the colon, softening and loosening the waste to be evacuated. Colon hydrotherapy permits other organs of elimination, that is your skin, your lungs, your liver, and your kidneys, to function more effectively. The waste materials that remains in the colon can become toxic, like it did with the little lady that I was treating for leukemia. It was really feeding the leukemia. And I will tell you that she went off of all of her Diet Cokes and her coffee and her teas, and she drank nothing but water, and it was filtered water that she had, actually RO water that she started using. Anyway, these toxic materials can be reabsorbed by the intestine, causing the onset of many health conditions, or exacerbating something that's already there, like if you've got cancer. The reabsorption of these toxic materials can be very, very dangerous. Colon hydrotherapy can help relieve common conditions of constipation, bloating, heartburn, acid reflux, absorption, and inflammation, to name a few. The fact is that a healthy colon will help to support and improve your overall health. These are some of the natural colon cleansers. These are all herbs. The Cascara sagrada is a very, very good product we get from, and it's actually grown here in this country now. Aloe vera, again, I'm not talking about the aloe vera you buy at Publix or wherever like that. This is the actual aloe vera plant that you take, and you just get that slimy material that's inside of it and eat it, and it's very, very good for detoxing and cleansing the colon. And these are some of the other ones. Now, these herbs here, like the Chinese rhubarb, the barberry root, the dandelion root, and what have you like that, they work in different ways to help eliminate materials, in the digestive system. They can stimulate water release. They can actually stimulate peristalsis. That's the movement of the material through the body. It can also add to the material, the actual fibrous material in the system. But they also work in protecting the lining of the colon. We worked a little bit with, in the hospital, with the gastroenterologist, and they would show us some pictures that they have taken of individuals' colons. Now, a colon, would look, it has striations in it, with the muscles. I saw one colon that it went along just like a normal colon, and all of a sudden there was this big, huge balloon, and it was full of fecal matter. The muscles that actually would control peristalsis were gone. The doctors call that an atonic colon. But there's a way to stimulate it back to normalcy again. And that is with the fiber diet, a lot of water, and taking some of these compounds, natural compounds, and staying away from greasy fried foods, refined flour, sugars, and processed foods. You can't eat them. You can't eat meat. You shouldn't. If you have a situation like this, the doctors actually would put them on high fiber diets. And this was back in the 60s, in the 70s, when they were doing this. They got away from it, but now they're getting back to it again because of the increase in some of these nasties that are happening as a result of it. And when it happens like this, when the colon becomes atonic, it will trap these toxins for long, long periods of time. And they're saying that sometime you can, when they clean out an individual, they are finding that this material was from meals that could be 2-3 weeks old in the colon. And all it's doing is absorbing those toxins back into your system. And if you're fighting a disease, you're fighting any kind of chronic condition in the body, high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol issues, heart problems, cancer, anything else, it is most vital that you keep that colon clean. All right. We're going to talk about liver now in the final moments of the meeting here. It is the main organ in your body that forms detoxing. I'm not going to read all this. I'm just going to simply tell you that the main function of the liver here is that it stores sugar in the form of glycogen. It also stores copper, iron, and vitamins like A, B12, D, E, and K. And the cells that are kind of like lining some of the blood vessels that go through these Kupffer cells are actually cells that will break down old white and red blood cells, and they actually will even destroy some bacteria. So this is the kind of, in a nutshell, what the liver does. But I wanted to get to this one because this is the most important thing that I want to tell you today about the liver. Both your liver and the gallbladder, along with the kidneys, of course, your bile, your blood, and your lymphatic system and skin, help your body process and eliminate all these nasty chemicals through sweat, urine, and feces. Detoxifying can help to support and enhance this whole natural process on everything we're talking about. Again, if you're working with the colon first, and then you start working with the liver. Your liver has an incredible important job to do, especially when it comes to detoxification. Along with filtering your blood to remove toxins, your liver uses two-phase type enzymatic actions that break down chemicals. The phase 1, the toxins are neutralized and broken down into smaller fragments. And in phase 2, they are bound with other molecules which can, in most times, not all the time, but most time, it creates a new non-toxic molecule that can be excreted through the bowel and the urine and the stool. This is important. This is your support for phase 1 and phase 2. I know that I don't think any of you have ever heard this before because this is relatively new. This is very, very important for every one of us. The types of vitamins, and of course you don't have to take the multiple vitamin. You can eat the foods that are high in these vitamins, but the Bs, all of the Bs are important for the liver function. The flavonoids that you get from fruits and vegetables. Notice the kind of diet that they talked about here, folks. It's all natural, plant-based materials. Foods rich in A, C, and E, like carrots, oranges, and wheat germ, and almonds. Glutathione, which is the major enzyme, antioxidant, in the liver that breaks down the toxins. If our liver quits producing glutathione, you will die. Okay. How do you get it? Avocados, you can find it in watermelons, the astragalus, walnuts, fresh fruits and vegetables. Nutrients that increase the glutathione levels include the N-acetylcysteine, cysteines and methionines. These are amino acids, okay, that are sulfur-based amino acids. You know where you might find those? Do you remember me talking about that? Your cruciferous vegetables. And I will tell you that we already noted from Johns Hopkins that these particular sulfur-forming compounds that are found in the microgreens, I'll talk to you about this again, were at the highest level of any plant on the face of this earth, was in the microgreens. I'm going to promote that. We need to be eating them, all right? Branched-chain amino acids are very important for this phase 1 liver support, found in eggs, nuts, seeds, and legumes. The phospholipids are also found in eggs, peanuts, sunflower seeds, wheat germ, and soybeans. Now, this is the phase 1. This is when your body first receives, the liver, receives the toxin. Okay, all of these compounds will boost and strengthen the phase 1 process of the liver so that it breaks these nasty things that we're getting into, that we're breathing, that we're eating. It will start breaking them down. Now, I would wish that we could say that it would take care of all of them, but it doesn't. But it takes care of the majority of them. Before these types of compounds can get in your body and cause all kinds of havoc, causing cancer, causing all these kinds of detrimental conditions, chronic conditions in the system, the liver is your first line of defense here. And it's the phase 1 that's the most important. So these types of foods, and you should study this yourself. What kind of foods can you eat that would have a lot of B vitamins in it, for instance? What kind of foods can I eat to get a lot of A, C, and E? Okay? There are other foods, I just mentioned a few here. You need to add them to your diet, all right? Okay. Phase 2. Now, what has happened in phase 2? Once these nasties have gone through the phase 1, they attach themselves to other other chemicals in the liver, right? Okay? And there's a group of these enzymes and antioxidants that the liver forms. I want to just share something with you. In your body cells, mention this to you, there's every cell of your body except in the brain, you have these little power plants called mitochondria. Mitochondria produces all the energy that your body uses every day of your life. And they have anywhere from 50 to 200 in your normal body cells of these mitochondria. Do you know how many is in each cell of the liver? Thousands of them. Because it's important that that whole factory is working in peak condition. So all of these materials that we're talking about here help strengthen the cells of the liver so that it can go ahead and fight against these toxins that we are being invaded with. You know, we as Seventh-day Adventists are lucky because we do have a vegetarian process type information as far as spirit of prophecy that this is what we should be eating. You know, and we get a lot of this material all along naturally. But again, if you've got somebody that's suffering from any kind of condition, this is the first thing you need to be telling them. They need to be eating these types of foods. All right, the indole-3-carbinol, I mentioned this to you before. Any of the glucosinolates like the sulforaphane and all of these, like the indole-3-carbinol and the other ones, all are from the cruciferous vegetables, and naturally they're the highest in the microgreens. But if you can't get the microgreens, at least eat your broccoli like your mother told you to. Limonene, found in oranges, tangerines, caraway seeds, and dill seeds. Limonenes are very important antioxidants. Glutathione that we already mentioned before. Omega-3 oils found in the flax seeds. We've talked about this as far as colon too. Chia and hemp seeds. And the amino acids that we find in nuts, seeds, grains, and legumes. These are all important builders of the liver. All right? And finally, these are the cleansers. These are the natural cleansers that are out there. And there are others, but these are the main ones that we have found. Milk thistle. In milk thistle, you find an ingredient called silymarin. Silymarin now is on prescription in Europe for liver problems. And you can get it in milk thistle. And it's abundant. Milk thistle is easy to get, it's very inexpensive, and we should add that to our regimen if you have any kind of liver conditions or anything like this. Supplement, or you can actually grow it, but I wouldn't suggest it, just get a supplement. Yeah. Dandelion, you know that, you know, this here is a false dandelion. This is not, but the real dandelion, you can eat every part of that plant. And it has some wonderful healing properties about it. I can remember that my grandmother tried to feed me dandelion greens when I was a kid. Oh, come on, you got to be kidding me. That's a weed. The first time I ate it was late in the fall. I think it was a little too bitter for me. But it's very, very, very good for you. Now, the other benefit of dandelion is just recently, within, say, the last 6 months, there's a new clinical study that came out using the root of the dandelion, that wild weed that we have in this country, to cause apoptosis in cancer cells at a major teaching institution. They're saying that some of the older ones may be the better ones out there. So it has some real, real benefits. And by the way, everybody can grow that. If you don't believe me, just plant a little in your yard. These other ones are quite effective also on the liver. Its effects are different. Combinations of some of these are really, really good. But if I had to give you one herb to use for your liver, it would be milk thistle. All right? Milk thistle. Okay. Now, for a good liver cleansing program, check out this website. Now, if you don't have a website, or don't have a computer, excuse me, I've made some copies of this. This is a kind of a standard type liver cleanse program that a lot of doctors are using in the naturopathic area. And homeopathic, traditional Chinese medicine, and what have you, they do use this. So I've made some copies of a few of these. If you want them, you can come up and get them until they run out. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I think you answered this already, but I want to make sure that I know it clearly. If a person has a cancerous tumor and you follow these different things, it will actually take care of the tumor. It doesn't need to get cut out and then,
Well, I'm going to have to be careful here because I've been jumped on. Would I have my tumor removed? No, absolutely not. Don't touch me with a knife at all. Don't biopsy me, leave me alone. Do you know why? Yes. And you thought you open it up and it spreads the cancer by oxygen. No, that's not it. And there's a whole plethora of science studies on this now showing that if you removed all the tumor, removed every bit of it, it can still metastasize. And it's because it's already done that. Probably it's got some cells sitting way up there in the lung, way up in the brain, already sitting there. And as soon as you turn off that major tumor, the signaling that it was sending out to stop the other tumors from growing is no longer there, and it grows. The other thing is that when they biopsy something, they do because if your tumor's large enough, over 2 centimeters, if it's already grown, it's already produced blood vessels, okay? And as soon as you touch it, it will release more cells into the body. Now, I tell people if you do this, if your doctor convinces you of this, and it's something that you decide with your physician, there are some protective things that you need to do. First of all, there are doctors out there that know this. There are good surgeons that are already, oncologist surgeons, that already know this. And they will do everything they can to protect you. Another onslaught to the body is the actual, anesthesia that they use. And it can actually spread cancer, the cancer cells. It sets up a very definite profile for metastasis, all right? These are all studies that I'm kind of gleaning this information out of, okay? The last study was in the Oncology Research, okay? That's not a magazine in this country. It actually is from Australia. And they were talking about this metastatic process. And their statement that they made, and I don't know that it's where they get all their information, is that your chances of sloughing off cell is about 100%. Okay, except the body can fight it off a lot of times. These cancer cells that slough off into the bloodstream and the lymph are pretty weak. And sometimes the body can, using the natural killer cells and what have you like this. I tell people this, if you're going to do this and you're going to go in for a biopsy or you're going in for surgery, build your system up before you go there. Make sure that your NK cells are at its peak. Do everything in your body, in your capabilities to protect your body against this stuff. Recent studies have shown that this modified citrus pectin that I've told you about before, that if you have somebody that goes in for surgery, they need to take this. This is mainstream stuff. Modified citrus pectin actually destroys the cancer cells before they can set into the process of growing, as we had in our last meeting. Does that answer your question?
Modified
Citrus pectin. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What is your opinion about baking soda as a clean?
Baking soda as far as stopping adjusting your pH? I don't see. Well, that's what it does. It adjusts your pH in your body. It's what they say it does. I don't believe in that you should be taking it. Again, green leafy vegetables and things like that will do the same thing, if not better. Chet?
I just want to make a comment that I observed. There are lots of politicians that do not believe in our environment being destroyed. They don't believe that, cold weather is anything to do with environmental pollution. Now, what you talked with us about is the exact opposite that the environment does, whether it's stuff you eat, or where you live, or on top of Mount Whitney, or whatever. What I cannot understand is if we believe this, wouldn't it be a good idea to vote against politicians that don't believe in environmental law?
My political stance is probably yes. But let me ask you a question this way. Most of you read The Spirit of Prophecy. Have you read Matthew 24? What's going to happen? What's happening in the world today has already been predicted it's going to happen, folks. All we have to do as Adventists is prepare ourselves and other individuals. We have to warn the world. First of all, that Christ is coming very soon. The other thing is, and God says this, that He wants us to be in good health. He does. He really does. Why? Why should we be in good health? You have to. In order for us to be a good witness to others, in order for us to be able to even communicate with God, we need to be free of diseases. And a lot of us folks have gone through our lives and we've not done anything good like this for our systems. And we end up with a lot of chronic type conditions as we get older. Are these reversible? Yes, every one of them. And so what we have to do is we have to start somewhere. And each of you have to start in your own way, in your own life. Okay? I hope that these few little programs that we presented to you will help you live a better, stronger lifestyle. That you may be able to help others that may have questions about this. If somebody out there that you know, right now I'm going to ask the question. If somebody out there that you know says, I've got cancer, and they're in the world, and probably what they've been eating and what have you like that, what would you tell them if they were just a casual conversation with you? What would you say? Okay. Are you practicing medicine without a license to do that? No. Yeah.
I was just curious, I was just doing some research on probiotics, and I was wondering, a lot of it assumed is a plant-based diet. I'm talking about ingredients such as kefir, kimchi, and yumabashi, and those things that are actually tied to a lot of the things that we do here.
Right.
If you do anything about probiotics.
Yeah. We get a lot of our probiotic, and I hate to say it this way, but we get it from, our yogurt and stuff like this. But you can get it in a lot of the, like you mentioned, the kimchi. You can get it in that. In some situations where you've had an individual with a toxic situation in their lives, or let's say that they have, they've had a bacterial infection and the doctors have overloaded the system with antibiotics. The antibiotics will kill the natural good flora in the colon. So you got to replace it. We just have a certain amount. There are trillions of cells of bacteria in your colon, and if it gets off balance, then you can get into all kinds of problems, including fungal overgrowths and again, developing the atonic colons or whatever like that. So probiotics are very, very important. But I will say this about it: if you have a condition like this, if you're eating a good,
Particularly to an autoimmune disorder.
say again, I'm sorry.
I mean, pertaining to an autoimmune disorder.
Okay.
As it relates to that.
Right. Okay. In other words, what's your question? Is it good for it? Yes. Absolutely. And in fact, we have to do that. And that's another thing too, is that if you are drinking milk, eating eggs, eating meat, you're getting antibiotics, most likely. And most likely you are destroying your colon, because the flora is very important and you've destroyed that. Again, if you go back, there's enough sometimes of good flora left in there that if you go back on a good vegetarian diet and what have you, it takes a while, but it'll come back. As long as you're not inundating it with more of the poisons. Yes, ma'am.
What is your advice on the use of manufactured vegetarian food?
I'm sorry, manufactured what?
What's your advice on the use of manufactured vegetarian food?
Like chocolates?
Manufactured, the ones that you buy in the store?
Oh, okay.
Healthy choice. Healthy choice, Loma Linda.
Do you know that the history of health food in the Adventist church? Do you know why they developed it?
I know it started with Kellogg's.
Actually, it was started because it was to get people off of meat. It was just a temporary thing, just to eat it for a little while to get you off of meat, start eating vegetables. And instead, it's become a mainstay. I know some people can't do it. I mean, for instance, chocolates and things like this are wheat gluten. Okay, it's where how you make it. Now they do make them out of soy and beans and what have you like that. And I don't know that they're bad for you necessarily. I think that it's a lot better than eating hamburger.
A lot of them are GMO.
Say again.
A lot of them are GMO soy.
GMO sourced or non-GMO? They are GMO soy.
A lot of them, you look to see if it says non-GMO.
Oh, okay.
If you look at the ingredients, there's a lot of chemical in there.
It's not a health food.
That's the best unhealthy health food I ever heard about. I tell you, if we can get all of our proteins and what have you from legumes and seeds and nuts and grains, it's the best way to do it. Yes, ma'am?
Reading Diet and Health, LG-wide suggests that we eat as natural as possible, close to back to eating, make your own vegetables and everything. And those things you should not fool around.
It's true. Absolutely.
As I said, just get off the meat, but as soon as you get off, you should go as natural and as simple as possible.
Every cancer patient that I talk to, without exception, I talked about the back to Eden diet, that you got to eat like they did in the Garden of Eden, and there was no animal products consumed whatsoever. And they didn't have a lot of sugar, they didn't have a lot of white flour and white rice, pasta, pizza, right? No McDonald's. Dennis.
I know two persons who have died within a very short time, having been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
Uh-huh.
My question is pancreatic cancer usually a death sentence, or can anything be done about it?
I talked to an oncologist that specialized in pancreatic cancer. And his treatments, he says, I can save about 20%. And then he just immediately kind of smirked a little bit and he said, but 20% survive without any treatment. It depends on where it is on the pancreas, to be honest with you. There are areas like if it gets where the olive Langerhans and what have you like that, where it's inoperable, you destroy the whole system of your insulin and your balance and checks there. It can be very, very dangerous. There are cases where individuals would go on a natural regimen, okay? I will say that they were probably consuming a lot of material that have what we call these phytoalexins in it. These phytoalexins are natural cancer fighters found in plant. They were eating a lot of fresh greens, a lot of raw foods and what have you, and they reversed it.
Is this because pancreatic cancer is usually detected when it's far gone?
Usually it's detected late stage. It's true. Yeah, it's true. But like I said, any time, I'm not saying that all cancers can be reversed, Dennis, but there is a huge possibility. And it certainly is something that I would want to do if I had it, is to change that lifestyle enough to give my body a fighting chance against it. You must understand that the body will fight cancer if you give it a chance. If you put in the right building blocks, it will fight it. I don't care where it is. I've seen it in inoperable brain tumors, where they've done this and totally reversed it by doing this. Now, as knowledge increases in this arena, now that we know where we're headed with this, in other words, the scientists that are working in this, including both on the pharmaceutical side as well as the natural side, they know that these plant chemicals are the answer. Now, there's so many hundreds and maybe even thousands of these that are out there. Eventually, even the pharmaceutical companies are going to come out with it. I'll share this with you. Maybe you didn't hear it, but I'll share it with you. 2 doctors in London were in England. I don't think it was London. Dr. Burke was one, and I forget the name of the other one now. They were studying, you remember me talking about tangerine peeling? Yeah. They isolated out that chemical finally. And you know what they did? Because they were both in the School of Pharmacy there. They found out that they could make it synthetically. They just sold it to Johnson & Johnson for $1 billion. That was in the newspaper. That is from one chemical found in tangerine peeling. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. Maybe that's what I should do. No, I'm just teasing. The key is here that we are going to find more and more of these. I'm just simply saying, hey, look, we already know that they exist in cruciferous vegetables. They're called brazenins. And each cruciferous vegetable has a different one or different groups of these. I can't tell you that Brussels sprouts are going to take care of pancreatic cancer. I don't know that. Not studied it enough. But if I ate a plethora of these things, and I already know that the high levels of these nutrients are in microgreens, for goodness sakes, why aren't you growing microgreens? I said. If you got pancreatic cancer, grow them yourselves. They're very easy to do. Eat them every day. Eat handfuls of them every day to give yourself a fighting chance. You see, it's within our grasp. It really is. Without the knowledge, we still have it in our grasp. And we don't know where all these things exist. We just find a few here and there. We found some in the musa juice, the plantain plant and the banana. We found them in the tangerine peeling. We found them in magnolia bark, of all things, that they exist there. But they're everywhere in nature.
Part of the problem seems to be that a lot of cancers are not detected until it's very late. I mean, I would imagine that the earlier you can detect the cancer, whether it be breast cancer, prostate cancer, whatever, it can be treated and you can cure it.
Well, the key here is not treatment, it's prevention. I mean, some of us may have cancer here. I'm talking to you right now. We may have cancer. And in fact, mostly of us do. Some may be in more advanced stages. I think that we all should be doing this. This is a reason why you're here listening to this mess. You need to be able to prevent it instead of having to treat it afterwards. It's a little harder to treat it. It can be treated naturally, Dennis. It really can be. But it's so much easier just to go ahead and adopt that wonderful lifestyle that God has designed for us and don't ever get it. And if you do, you have a better fighting chance to fight it off anyway. Okay? Worth a pound to cure? Yeah. Yeah.
What's your best source of seeds for microgreens?
Best source of seeds?
Suggestions.
I get them. There are many seed companies that got them. Johnny's is one of them, yeah.
Microgreens, if you have
There's one called Seed Savers, and they have organic heirloom. Seed Savers is the name of the company. There's an young Adventist boy, he's 19 years old, just started a seed company, and that's what his design is, to do nothing but get us good, organic, heirloom type seeds.
You asked for the broccoli and what do you ask for specifically?
What do you mean?
To grow your own microgreens.
Well, they have it under microgreen seeds. That's how they're listed. They're listed that way. Harris, a few. Yeah, they do. But you got to watch out, Harris. They like Monsanto. Yeah, they do. But there's, as far as cruciferous vegetables, there are no such thing as a GMO seed. Not yet. Not yet. I don't know that they're not working on it, but it's not there yet anyway. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Shall we stand? Loving Father in heaven, we thank you for the many blessings that you bestowed upon each of us. We thank you for the health that we have. We pray that each of us will make it our duty to follow your health laws all the way. It's our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.